We begin with the story of Congressman George Santos, who has been indicted in 13 counts relating to various federal charges, and the indictment has been unsealed. George Santos, the congressman who somewhat notably embellished his resume during the campaign in some fairly notable ways, has been charged with fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, and false statements by the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. From the Department of Justice's own website, the 13-count indictment was unsealed today in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York, charging George Santos, a United States congressman representing the 3rd District of New York, with 7 counts of wire fraud, which is where you use a communication medium of some kind to commit the fraud. Doesn't necessarily have to be wire these days, of course. The statute has been updated over the time. So basically, did you use a communication medium of some kind to commit the frauds? 3 counts of money laundering. You all know what money laundering is. 1 count of theft of public funds, and 2 counts of making materially false statements to the House of Representatives. The indictment was turned yesterday under seal, but has been unsealed as of this morning so that we can talk about it in more detail. Santos was arrested this morning and is going to be arraigned this afternoon before a federal judge for his first appearance. The indictment seeks to hold Santos accountable for various alleged fraud schemes and brazen misrepresentations. Taken together, the allegations in the indictment charge Santos with relying on repeated dishonesty and deception to ascend to the halls of Congress and enrich himself. He used political contributions to line his pockets, unlawfully applied for unemployment benefits that should have gone to New Yorkers who lost their jobs due to the pandemic, and lied to the House of Representatives. In my office, we'll seek to hold him accountable and aggressively root out corruption and self-dealing from our community, public institutions, and hold public officials accountable to the constituents who elect them. At the height of the pandemic, in 2020, George Santos allegedly applied for and received unemployment benefits while employed. As charged in the indictment, the defendant allegedly his behavior continued during his second run for Congress, where he pocketed campaign contributions and used that money to pay down personal debts. Yeah, no, we can't. There are rules. There are rules, between campaign money and personal money. It's like business money, okay? It's business money, all right? There are rules when it comes to personal funds versus business funds, all right? Doesn't really matter what the business is in this particular context, okay? Just think personal funds, personal. Business funds, business, okay? If you do that, you're most of the way home, all right? When you start using the personal funds to pay for business things, or use the business funds to pay for personal things, either way, you run into problems. So please don't do that. Please don't do that. And also, for the love of God, just don't commingle funds. That's just a really bad way to get into trouble on every possible level. The indictment is a result of a lengthy collaboration between law enforcement and the U.S. Attorney, Department of Justice, and FBI. As alleged in the indictment, Santos, who was elected to Congress, did the following things. All right, so let's learn more about the allegations in their details, because so far we've been covering them in high level, right? So let's learn a little bit more about what George Santos appears to have done. All right, so what did he do? Or what did he allegedly do? Beginning in September 2022, during his successful campaign for Congress, Santos operated a limited liability company, which he allegedly defrauded prospective political supporters. He apparently enlisted a Queens-based political consultant to communicate with prospective donors on his behalf. He allegedly directed this person to falsely tell donors that, among other things, their money would be used to help elect him to the House, including by purchasing television advertisements. In reliance on these statements, 2 donors contributed money. It's like, please help me raise money for my campaign. Okay, here's some money for your campaign. All right. As alleged in the indictment, shortly after the funds were received into the LLC's bank account, the money was transferred into his personal bank accounts. Uh-oh. in one instance laundered through 2 other accounts. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Santos allegedly then used much of that money for his personal expenses. Uh-oh. Among other things, he allegedly used the funds to make personal purchases, including designer clothing, withdraw cash, discharge personal debts, and transfer monies to associates. Uh-oh. So yeah, that would be basically all the things we talked about and rolled up into one. That would be money laundering, because apparently he used multiple accounts to try to like hide the money. So that's money laundering. He made the advertisements in furtherance of the fraud. That's wire fraud. He illegally took the money from the campaign for his personal expenses. That's a campaign finance violation. So yeah, basically, those are all the things. Yeah, that's not good. Please don't do that. All right, unemployment insurance fraud scheme. Beginning approximately February 2020, Santos was employed as a regional director of a Florida-based investment firm, where he earned a salary of $120,000. Not bad money. By late 2020, in response to outbreak of COVID, new legislation was signed into law that provided for additional federal funding to assist out-of-work workers. Yes, it certainly did. In mid-2020, although employed, he applied for government assistance through the United States Department of Labor, allegedly falsely claiming to be unemployed. Uh-oh. We are making false statements to the government. Uh-oh. Prior to that point, from that point until April 2021, when he was working and receiving a salary on a near continuous basis, and during an initial unsuccessful run for Congress, he falsely affirmed each week he was eligible for benefits. Uh-oh. Every one of those, incidentally, could be charged separately, because every single one is a separate false statement. So, as a result, he allegedly received more than $24,000 in unemployment benefits. Uh-oh. Yeah, if you're actually employed, maybe don't write documents to the government saying, hey, government, I'm unemployed. Can I have some money, please? Maybe don't do that. That'd be great. Finally, the indictment describes Santos's efforts to mislead the House and public about his financial connection. Santos, like all candidates for House, has a legal duty to file with the clerk of the House a financial disclosure before each election. In the disclosures he's required to file, he was required to give a full and complete accounting of his assets, income, and liabilities. He certified to the House that these things were true. In May 2020, in connection with his first campaign, Santos filed 2 disclosures with the House in which he allegedly falsely certified that his only earned income consisted of a salary, commission, and bonuses totaling $55,000 from another company, and his only compensation exceeding $5,000 he received from a single source was an unspecified commission bonus. In actuality, he allegedly overstated the income he received from Company 2 and altogether failed to disclose the money he received from the investment firm. So at the time, he was apparently receiving $120,000 in income. He told the House, hey, I'm only earning $55,000. And he wasn't even earning that from that particular company. So he tried to shift some of the money that he was earning from one place to a different place, but he didn't shift all the money. And they didn't tell him about the job with the investment firm at all, for some reason. Just tell them. But he didn't for some reason. I don't know. In 2022, in connection with the second campaign, Santos filed another disclosure. In this disclosure, he falsely certified the following. He had earned $750,000 in salary from DeVolder Organization, LLC. He had received between $1 million and $5 million in dividends from DeVolder. He had a checking account with deposits between $100,000 and $250,000, and a savings account with between $1 million and $5 million. As alleged in the indictment, not so much. Santos had not received from DeVolder the salary or dividends and did not maintain the checking or savings accounts. He also failed to disclose that he received approximately $28,000 in income from an investment firm and more than $20,000 in unemployment benefits. So, there's that. If convicted, he could face a maximum of up to 20 years. That would be the wire fraud, basically, is the top count on this thing. In case you're curious, that's the wire fraud driving this sentence. So yeah, don't do the wire frauds would be great. The case is being prosecuted by the Office of the Public Integrity Section, Long Island Criminal Division, and Criminal Division Public Integrity Section with a bunch of people who are assisting. The defendant is George Santos, age 34, currently residing in Washington, D.C. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story for the moment of George Santos, with the indictment being unsealed by the United States Attorney. It appears, for reasons unknown, George Santos is just lying about where his money comes from, which I don't know why. The money we're talking about is all legally earned, at least as it relates to, like, his employer, right? So he earned a salary of $120,000. Just be like, hey, I earned $120,000. Like, why lie? I don't know. And then he also lied to House about it for some reason. I don't know. And then in perhaps the more difficult, the more troubling indictment, the one that's going to really drive this is the fraud relating to the I'd like to take campaign money and use it for personal expenses, please. While not telling the donors I'm doing that, by the way. So that would be in the nature of the fraud, right? I obtained money under a false pretense for purposes other than what I told you about and induced you based on the lies to give me the money. That would be the short definition of fraud. And then I did that using a electronic communication medium in interstate commerce, including, for example, advertisements on the TV, which would be the wire fraud. And then I decided to shift the money around in different bank accounts, including daisy chaining it along, apparently in an attempt to hide where it came from, which is the money laundering. And yeah, the U.S. attorneys indicted him for all this. And the U.S. attorney, as mentioned before, has a 98, 99% conviction rate once you factor in settlements and pleas and stuff, because the U.S. attorney is usually really, really good at their job. They tend to be conservative compared to states in sort of prosecution philosophy. So states and district attorneys who work for the state government tend to prosecute a little bit more liberally than the U.S. attorney. The U.S. attorney tends to be a lot more conservative. They don't like to lose a lot, so they tend to only sue. They tend to only bring suit when they've got you dead to rights. So they don't lose very much as a result. So things are not looking great for George Santos, and that, for the moment, brings us to the end of discussion of this case.